For the most part, no. In part because your employer probably won't even know that you filed. I mean, think about it. How often do you troll around the bankruptcy filings to see who's filed a bankruptcy case? Probably never. Unless you're a bankruptcy attorney, that's not something that comes up. And your employer is probably not looking around to see have any of my employees filed for bankruptcy protection. So for the most part, it's not going to affect your employment at all. On the off chance that the employer does find out, let's say because you owe the employer money, well, there is a protection in the bankruptcy code, section 525, if you're curious, against discrimination in employment based on bankruptcy. And one section of 525, that's part A, deals with discrimination on the part of a governmental employer, and the other deals with on the part of a private employer. And then the third section deals with discrimination in student lending. Okay, so it does say that you can't be discriminated against based on bankruptcy, but it does say solely based on bankruptcy. So if you have a soured relationship with your employer, you file a bankruptcy and the employer says, see you later, you might say, well, I'm going to sue that employer because that violates section 525 of the bankruptcy code against discriminating based on employment. But the employer might say, hey, that had nothing to do with my decision. I let you go because you weren't coming to work on time or your work was of a low grade. So it's one of those things that can be devilishly hard to prove. Did you really lose your job because of bankruptcy, or was it for some other reason? So for the most part, that really doesn't come up because employers really don't find out about your bankruptcy filing. Interesting little twist. Now, I don't practice in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm here in the Central District of California. But I have learned that some of the governmental agencies will insist that an employee who has a lot of debt go through a bankruptcy. So, for example, the CIA, and guys, if you're listening, love you, you're great. The CIA will sometimes have its employees go through a bankruptcy if they have too much debt, because that too much debt opens them up to influence by foreign governments, similarly with the FBI. And so if you have too much debt, they may say, if you want to continue working for us, you have to get rid of that debt, and bankruptcy is the way that you can do it. How frequently forced bankruptcies in that context come up, I really don't know. But I do know that sometimes governmental employees who work for organizations that have that deal with very sensitive information may be encouraged, let's say, to go through a bankruptcy to get rid of that debt. I'm guessing the NSA, what I have heard is dealing with the FBI and the CIA, but probably the NSA as well, and maybe the IRS. So are they discriminated against because of bankruptcy? Well, no. In fact, this is something that helps them in their employment. But the reality is it's going to be on an employer-by-employer basis how bankruptcy will affect your relationship with your employer.